At 14:43, the Japanese torpedo bombers passed through the destroyer and cruiser screen and launched their fish at Yorktown. 2 torpedoes from this attack hit the carrier on the port side.
And finally we hear the word, stand by for torpedo attack.
The water was very clear, and the warheads on their torpedoes, on these 2 anyway, were painted bright yellow, and I could see them under the water come in and hit the ship.
The bomb blast is a blast. Torpedo is kind of like a grumbling roar. One admiral said it's like a little dog shaking a rat, you know. It's just a roar, a rumble. But you know the guts of your ship are being tore out, but you don't know where.
It's quite a sensation to get hit by a torpedo. The Yorktown was 20,000 tons or whatever, and I'll swear it lifted us a couple feet off straight up in the air and right back down.
The ship rolled up, rocked, ship stem to stern, shook. I thought we were going to go right over. The hangar deck went down to the water, 26, 28 degrees, and you couldn't walk on the decks.
Finally, the commanding officer put an alert over the speakers, abandon ship. You take your shoes off and climb up the deck. And the deck crew had dropped 2-inch lines from the flight deck down to the water, all along the ship, probably 2, 3, 4, 5 feet apart, all along the ship. People from the bridge and the deck, flight deck, would come down those lines. We from below would go up to the hangar deck, find the high side where the lines are, find a space on the line, and go down to the water.
The problem was, when you're abandoning a ship like that, there's oil all over the water. Vapors are coming up. It burns your eyes. It burns your nostril. If you get any of that in your mouth, you throw up.
We had K-Pop life jackets, the old Midway life jackets. And all you do is stay afloat till you get picked up. And but what happened there was our own destroyers would come up in a group of people, real slow so as not to turn them up, and move in real slow, hang cargo nets over the side. And you can't swim in that stuff, but as the sea would wash you up alongside any of these destroyers, you'd hang on, then they had men there to pull you over on the deck.
So they picked me up and flopped me on the cold steel deck. And I looked for a place to go. The deck's covered with sailors, different conditions. Went down below, and the mess tables are being used for operating tables. People are in shock, they're under blankets and that sort of thing.
My skipper, for example, Dick Best, was, I think, the one that kept making the point, there's another carrier out there. And so that afternoon we put together what was left of our planes, what was left of the Yorktown, and some of the Hornet planes had gotten back to the carriers, their carrier, and so put them all together and they went out.
Admiral Spruance aboard Enterprise sent aloft 24 aircraft under the command of Earl Gallagher of VS-6. The complement of aircraft included planes from VB-6 and Yorktown's VB-3. There were no accompanying fighters as they were providing cover to the carriers.
Earl Gallagher missed, so I took his corrections, figure, he had already added this much, so I added in that I did in the morning. And I'm pretty sure they landed on exactly on the same place on the ship, on the Hiryu, as I did that morning on the Kaga.
4 hits on Hiryu inflicted massive damage. The fires became uncontrollable, and the order to abandon ship was given in the early hours of June 5th. The 4 carriers, sent to conquer Midway and draw out the U.S. fleet, rested on the floor of the Pacific Ocean.
They didn't really have to go in June. They could have waited until the Zukaku and the Shokaku were operational. And boy, that would have been a different situation had they done that.
On the evening of June 4th, Admiral Kudita's 4 heavy cruisers, Kumano, Suzoya, Mikuma, and Mogami, with 2 destroyer escorts, were steaming toward Midway for a night bombardment of the island with their 8-inch guns. They were sighted by U.S. submarine Tambor as they maneuvered to evade and attack the sub. Cruisers Mogami and Mikuna collided. The damaged Mogami was left in the protection of Mikuna, and the rest of Kuritas cruisers sped off.
And but anyway, we caught up with him, you know, the second day. And so we the weather was just ideal and so on. Here was the ship going this way, and well, we just made shambles out of the Mogami.
On June 6th, the abandoned Yorktown was still afloat and listing.
Captain Buckmaster came back to the Hammond. He was looking for volunteers of the different professionals or classifications. So he knew me, so when I stepped up, he says, "Go over there, sign your name." So 141 enlisted, and I think 15 or 20 officers of the different disciplines, engineering, electronics, or whatever, all volunteered aboard the Hammond, and we went back early morning, June the 6th, and went aboard the Yorktown. Then I went down to where we were pushing airplanes overboard, and we're lowering them from the overhead, brand new torpedo planes especially. They were spares. We lowered them down, pushed them overboard. One of those torpedo planes, the TBD-1, is mine. When we pushed it through the hangar deck door that was open, I said, "Captain Buckmaster," I was a little brazen, I guess, "please give me this torpedo plane." He says, "You got it, Roy," and over it went. Splashed in the ocean and floated a little bit, and down it went. So I have one at 17,000 feet if I can go get it someday.
They were, as you say, they were towing Yorktown, going to tow it back to Pearl Harbor with a 27-degree list at 1 1/4 knot per hour. But they were doing it. That's on a fleet tug out to do that. They would have made it, except 2 days later, late June 6th, the submarine I-158 got inside the radar range of the destroyers, and they fired 4 shots. 1 missed, 2 caught Yorktown below the bridge keels, and 1 caught the Hammond. The Hammond had come alongside to supply water and electricity. They were going to try to flood the Yorktown and right it. But that submarine, that one torpedo caught the Hammond nearly midship broadside and broke the thing in half. And I think nearly all hands went down because their depth charges went off in the water.
In a matter of minutes, the Hammond sank, and the salvage crew of Yorktown prepared to abandon ship a second time.
Went up to the bridge, and he says, "Take some pictures." So I took pictures, and suddenly the Yorktown rolled to port, went down stern first.
Admiral Spruance and Fletcher had successfully carried out Admiral Nimitz's order.
Midway changed the world at that time in that Japan had a great navy, and they're not to be underrated.
Well, I guess because we depended on a lot of luck to win. It was a big gamble. I thought it was a brilliant name, although I don't think I realized it at the time. I don't think many did, that we could have lost that battle very, very easily.
So, if we had lost Midway, we probably would have lost Guadalcanal. Australia would have been at risk. It was truly a dynamic situation.
What kind of nerves did Admiral Nimitz have to risk the striking force of the American Navy in one major sea battle?
I don't know whether he was a poker player himself or not, but he made it clear. He made it clear to his staff and to his subordinates that they were going into this battle employing the doctrine of calculated risk. He knew the risks. He knew that we could have lost everything or been totally ineffective. But he urged them to do their best, and they did. And as I say, I still think there was a big element of luck
Commander Rochefort, for example, broke the Japanese code and convinced Admiral Nimitz that, you know, there was going to be an attack on Midway. Admiral Nimitz believed him, and he committed the whole Pacific Fleet at that point in time to this Battle of Midway.
Intelligence enabled the United States Navy to participate in the battle. The battle was won by the courage and action, mainly of the aviators, as well as people supporting them, the ship drivers, and the Marines on Midway.
The 4 ships that bombed Pearl Harbor were sunk at Midway.
And I think it's probably true that a loss at Midway and our probable reaction to that loss could well have delayed our progress in giving priority to the European war, could have delayed it by a year or maybe 2, prolonged the entire war.
We celebrate Midway every year. In fact, what was it, 2 years ago, I think, Chief of Naval Operations issued an edict. The Navy will celebrate 2 days every year. We'll stand down and celebrate 2 days. One's the birthday of the Navy, and one is to observe the victory at Midway.
The Battle of Midway was it, as far as World War II is concerned. It was the deciding factor.